It was a cold December evening, and the streets of Millwood lay silent under a heavy blanket of fog. Joseph Carter, a retired community leader and advocate for justice, was on his way home from a late town hall meeting. Inside his car, the soothing notes of a jazz melody mingled with the soft hum of the engine, providing a tranquil backdrop to the long drive. Suddenly, the serene rhythm of the night was shattered. A wailing siren pierced the air, red and blue lights flickering ominously in Joseph's rearview mirror. His pulse quickened, though he was certain he'd done nothing wrong. His documents were in order, his speed well within the limit. Yet the patrol car behind him signaled for him to pull over. Joseph sighed deeply and complied, his thoughts racing. As he came to a stop, two officers emerged from the patrol car. Officer Harris, tall and broad-shouldered, wore an expression that teetered on smug arrogance. His partner, Officer Drake, lingered a few paces back, hand resting on the butt of his holstered weapon. License and registration, Harris demanded curtly, his tone devoid of politeness. Joseph handed over his documents without a word, keeping his composure despite the knot tightening in his stomach. "Step out of the vehicle," Harris ordered, his voice laced with an unspoken challenge. Suppressing a sigh, Joseph obeyed, exiting the car with deliberate calm. As Harris searched him roughly, muttering thinly veiled insults, Joseph stood resolute. "This your car?" Harris sneered. "Doesn't seem like it suits someone like you." Joseph, though accustomed to prejudice, sensed tonight was different. The hidden camera he'd installed in his car whirred silently, capturing every word and action. Years of advocacy had taught him the importance of evidence. Despite the officer's disdain, he remained composed, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. This time, the truth wouldn't just emerge, it would demand justice. The officers continued their degrading interrogation, oblivious to the faint sound of an approaching vehicle. Headlights sliced through the night, illuminating the tense scene as a black SUV pulled up. The door opened and out stepped Captain Elijah Monroe, the newly appointed state police chief, his authoritative presence instantly commanding attention. "What's happening here?" Monroe asked, his tone calm but firm. His piercing gaze moved between the two officers and Joseph. Harris's confident smirk faltered as he straightened up, attempting to maintain his composure. "Just conducting a routine check, sir," Harris said, though his voice lacked conviction. Monroe's eyes narrowed. "Routine, you say? What prompted the stop?" Harris hesitated, searching for an explanation. "Well, his car seemed out of place." "Out of place," Monroe repeated, his voice sharp. He turned to Joseph, his expression softening. "Are you all right, Mr. Carter?" Joseph nodded, appreciating the question, but choosing to remain quiet for now. His hidden camera continued recording. Monroe's attention snapped back to Harris and Drake. "Your actions tonight better align with departmental protocols, or there will be consequences." "Now, step back." Reluctantly, Harris and Drake obeyed. Monroe approached Joseph. "I'm Captain Monroe," he said, extending his hand. "I apologize for the situation. You have my assurance that it will be addressed." Joseph shook his hand, sensing genuine sincerity. Monroe's commanding presence shifted the atmosphere. The officers, previously confident, now looked uneasy. Monroe's next words carried weight. "Gentlemen, retrieve your dashcam footage and provide an account of your actions. I'll handle this personally." The balance of power had shifted. Joseph felt a glimmer of hope, not just for himself, but for others who had suffered similar indignities. Tonight might mark the beginning of real change. The tension in the air was palpable as Captain Elijah Monroe stepped closer to the officers, his sharp eyes assessing every detail of the scene. Officer Harris and Officer Drake, who moments earlier had exuded unwarranted confidence, now appeared visibly uncomfortable. "Captain, it's really not what it looks like," Harris began, his voice shaky. We were just following procedure." Monroe's expression hardened. "Procedure? Let me see your dashcam footage now." Reluctantly, Harris retrieved the dashcam device from the patrol car. Monroe called over one of the younger officers who had arrived on the scene. "Download and secure this footage," Monroe ordered. The officer nodded and set to work immediately. Meanwhile, Monroe's attention returned to Joseph Carter. "Mr. Carter, I want to thank you for your patience. I promise this will not go unnoticed." Joseph nodded in quiet acknowledgement, his calm demeanor unwavering. Moments later, the younger officer approached Monroe with the footage ready to play. Monroe watched the video, his jaw tightening with every passing second. The recording revealed Harris and Drake's sarcastic remarks, their unfounded accusations, and their hostile behavior. Monroe's face, stoic as ever, betrayed his deep frustration. "You both realize this is unacceptable," Monroe said, turning to Harris and Drake. His voice was low, but the weight of his words hit like a hammer. "Not only did you act without just cause, but your conduct reflects poorly on this entire department." Harris stammered, "Captain, we didn't mean any harm." "Didn't mean harm?" Monroe repeated, his voice rising slightly. "Your behavior was harmful. People like Mr. Carter deserve respect, not humiliation." Joseph, quietly observing, decided it was time to contribute. "Captain Monroe, I have my own recording of the incident," he said, pulling out the small hidden camera from his car. Monroe's eyebrows raised slightly, impressed. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. We'll use this evidence to ensure accountability." The officers stood silent, their earlier arrogance completely erased. For the first time that evening, Joseph felt a sense of justice taking shape. The night's events spiraled into an awakening for the small town of Millwood. As Captain Monroe directed the junior officer to secure the dashcam footage and Joseph Carter's personal recording, murmurs among the growing crowd swelled into a quiet roar. News of the incident spread rapidly, with onlookers sharing live videos on social media. Monroe's next step was decisive. He turned to Harris and Drake, their faces now pale under the streetlights. "Gentlemen, hand over your badges," Monroe commanded, his voice firm. "You are officially relieved of duty, pending a full investigation." Harris's bravado cracked. "Captain, please, we were just—" "Enough," Monroe interrupted sharply. "Your actions tonight speak louder than any excuse. As of this moment, your authority as officers is revoked." The crowd erupted into quiet applause and murmurs of approval. Harris and Drake, visibly shaken, handed over their badges before retreating to their patrol car under the watchful eyes of the community they had sworn to serve. Turning back to Joseph, Monroe's expression softened. "Mr. Carter, I cannot undo what you've experienced tonight, but I promise this department will face the reckoning it needs." "You have my word." Joseph nodded, his calm unwavering. "Thank you, Captain Monroe. This isn't just about me. It's about ensuring these actions don't happen to anyone else." By morning, the footage had gone viral. News stations broadcast the encounter, sparking outrage and calls for systemic reform. Community leaders rallied, organizing forums and marches to demand accountability and justice. The incident became a lightning rod for change, forcing the Millwood Police Department into the public spotlight. Monroe acted swiftly. He called a press conference where he stood shoulder to shoulder with Joseph. "What you saw in those videos is unacceptable," Monroe addressed the crowd and cameras. "Under my leadership, we will rebuild trust. This department will become a beacon of fairness and integrity." Joseph took the podium next, his voice steady but impassioned. "Tonight marked a turning point. Together, we can ensure that justice isn't just a word, but a reality for everyone." The moment cemented their partnership, inspiring the town and beyond to believe in the possibility of meaningful change. Justice, once elusive, was now within reach. The public's response to the viral footage was overwhelming. Within hours, protests erupted across Millwood, with people of all backgrounds gathering to demand justice. Signs reading "Accountability Now" and "Justice for All" waved in the air as the community rallied behind Joseph Carter and Captain Monroe's promise of reform. Monroe wasted no time. By the end of the week, he had convened a task force of trusted officers and community leaders, including Joseph, to draft a comprehensive reform plan. The group's mission was clear: address systemic issues within the police department and rebuild trust with the community. "We need transparency and accountability at every level," Monroe stated at their first meeting. "This isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about creating a new foundation for policing in Millwood." Joseph's voice carried equal weight during these discussions. Drawing from his years of advocacy, he proposed policies to prevent abuses of power, including mandatory body cameras, regular anti-bias training, and the establishment of an independent oversight board. "These measures won't just protect citizens," Joseph argued. "They'll also protect officers who uphold the law with integrity." As the reforms took shape, Monroe and Joseph held community forums to ensure that residents' voices were heard. These gatherings became a space for healing, as people shared their stories and found solidarity in their collective demand for change. By the end of the month, Monroe announced the first phase of reforms. Harris and Drake's official dismissal was just the beginning. Policies were implemented to ensure greater transparency in traffic stops, including the requirement for officers to provide written documentation explaining the reason for each stop. Joseph's role didn't end there. Appointed as a civilian advisor to the department, he became a bridge between law enforcement and the community, ensuring that the changes were not only enacted but sustained. The incident that had begun as a moment of humiliation transformed into a catalyst for progress. Under Monroe's leadership and Joseph's unwavering dedication, Millwood's police department began to embody the principles of justice and equality it was meant to uphold. Months after the pivotal incident, Millwood became a beacon of hope and progress. The reforms implemented under Captain Monroe's leadership, with Joseph Carter's steadfast collaboration, began to yield tangible results. Complaints of police misconduct dwindled, and trust between the community and law enforcement was steadily rebuilt. Joseph's role as a civilian advisor became a cornerstone of the transformation. His regular presence at the department ensured that the voices of ordinary citizens were heard at the highest levels. He spearheaded the Citizens Oversight Board, a diverse group of community representatives tasked with reviewing cases of alleged misconduct and ensuring transparency in disciplinary actions. Under Monroe's leadership, the department adopted a proactive approach to community engagement. Officers began participating in neighborhood events, attending town hall meetings, and hosting workshops on rights and responsibilities during police interactions. The once intimidating badge became a symbol of service and protection. Joseph's story continued to inspire beyond Millwood. Invited to speak at universities, civic organizations, and law enforcement conferences, he shared his journey from humiliation to advocacy. "Change starts with accountability," he often said, "but it's sustained by collaboration and courage." In recognition of his efforts, Joseph received several prestigious awards, including the State Medal of Civic Leadership. Despite the accolades, he remained humble, redirecting the spotlight to the collective efforts of Millwood citizens and police force. Monroe, too, gained national recognition for his transformative leadership. He was invited to advise other municipalities facing similar challenges, spreading the principles of integrity and reform that had worked so well in Millwood. On the anniversary of the fateful night, Millwood held a unity march. Hundreds of residents, officers, and supporters walked side by side, a testament to the progress they had made together. Joseph and Monroe led the march, carrying a banner that read, "Justice and Unity for All." Joseph's journey became a legacy of hope, proving that even the darkest moments could spark change. His partnership with Monroe showed that systemic reform was not only possible, but inevitable when fueled by determination, empathy, and the collective will of a community. As the months turned into a year, the transformation in Millwood became undeniable. The police department, once plagued by mistrust and division, now stood as a symbol of collaboration and progress. Reports of officer misconduct had plummeted, and citizens felt safer and more respected in their own neighborhoods. Joseph Carter's work continued to shine as an example of what community-driven change could achieve. His dedication to transparency and fairness earned him invitations to national panels on justice reform. Real change comes from the people, he often said. When the voices of citizens are heard, the system has no choice but to respond. At a commemorative event marking the anniversary of the reforms, Monroe invited Joseph to speak. Standing before a crowd that included officers, civic leaders, and families, Joseph's voice resonated with conviction. This isn't just about one town or one department, he said. It's about proving that fairness and accountability can restore faith in our institutions. Together, we've shown that unity is our greatest strength. The applause was thunderous. Among the attendees were individuals who had initially doubted the reforms. Now, they stood alongside Joseph and Monroe, proud of the strides their town had made. Monroe, ever humble, praised Joseph's influence. "He's the bridge that connected us to our community," Monroe said. "His courage to stand firm and his willingness to lead remind us why we serve." As the crowd dispersed, Joseph and Monroe exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. Their partnership had not only repaired a fractured relationship between law enforcement and the community, but had also sparked a movement that extended far beyond Millwood's borders. Joseph Carter's story continued to inspire, proving that even in the face of adversity, hope and determination could create a brighter future for everyone.